Welcome to Photos and Travel, a show that introduces you to fascinating places around the world. Please welcome our host and tour guide, Jonathan Van Bilsen.
Hello and welcome to this episode. Today we're going to travel to the center of the Mediterranean and the beautiful island of Malta, located directly between Turkey and Gibraltar and Sicily and North Africa. Malta is filled with history dating back 8,000 years. We'll explore this beautiful island right after these messages.
Thinking of indoor or outdoor signs? At PP Print, we can help with so much to offer. Just ask. We've got you covered. PP Print, where experience pays off.
Pet Value has a fleet of services to help you and your pet live their very best lives. Visit Pet Value Port Perry for all of your pet's needs. Pet Value, your pet, your store.
Welcome back. Malta is an island nation consisting of 3 main islands. With a population of just over 500,000, it is one of the 10 smallest countries in the world and the 4th most densely populated. I don't often mention hotels in this series, as experiences tend to be individual, but I must admit the Radisson Blu in Malta's capital is a fantastic resort and very centrally located. I spent a week in Malta after a rigorous 2-week adventure in Italy, so the luxurious surroundings of the hotel offered a relaxing retreat. I flew to Valletta, the tiny capital of this Mediterranean island, and met my guide Janez, who now lives in Slovenia but lived in Malta for a number of years. All the buildings of the walled city of Valletta date back to the 16th century and were constructed during the occupation by the Knights Hospitalier, the medical arm of the Knights Templar, also known as the Order of St. John. With funding from the Vatican, amongst other benefactors, the Knights built Valletta to fortify Malta as a stronghold for Roman Catholicism. Despite its small size, Malta had a significant military advantage due to its location, and was the perfect place for the Knights to accommodate the sick and injured, which was and still is their core mission. The founder of the city, Jean de Valletta, was a French nobleman and the 49th Grand Master of the Order of Malta. As a Knight of the Hospitalier, he fought with distinction against the Turks at Rhodes, and as Grand Master became the Order's hero and most illustrious leader. He commanded the resistance against the Ottomans at the Great Siege of Malta in 1565, which is sometimes regarded as one of the greatest sieges of all times. Built on a peninsula between 2 natural harbors, the city sits perched on a higher ground. Its streets were aligned in a grid-like layout, being wide and straight. This was done to allow the sea breezes to provide some cooling from Malta's hot summer weather. Valletta has been the capital of Malta since 1571, making it one of the youngest capitals in Europe. It has a population of only 6,500. I consider Valletta a 3-day city, meaning you can spend 3 days there to see everything of interest. Oh, and did I mention the restaurants and food are amazing? The Grand Master's Palace, built in 1571, was the residence of the Grand Master of the Knights Hospitalier. It currently houses the office of the President of Malta and the House of Representatives. During the British period from 1800 to 1964, it served as the palace for the governor and was the seat of the Parliament of Malta right up until 2015. The palace is allegedly haunted by a number of ghosts. According to an English lady who stayed there while it was the residence of the British governor, she used to hear sounds of cats and dogs fighting in one of the rooms, but she saw nothing once she entered the chamber. One time the ghost manifested itself in the form of a large cat, which jumped through a window before vanishing. Teatro Manuel is a theater and important performing arts venue in Malta. It is located on Old Theatre Street and was built in 1731 by Grand Master of the Order of the Knights Hospitalier Antonio Manuel, after whom it was named. He personally funded the construction of this central building to serve as a public theater. It was built in just 10 months at a cost of 2,184 scudi, which is around $50,000. At today's currency levels, that would equal around $3.2 million. The Church of Our Lady of Carmel is one of the 359 churches in Malta, which is more per capita than any other country in the world. In fact, you could attend a different church almost every day of the year without setting a foot in the same one twice. This also means there's a density of one church for every square kilometer. Our Lady of Carmel Church is one of the most famous churches and main tourist attractions of Valletta, and it forms part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which includes the entire city. Seats can be reserved and are often personalized with emblems of their residents. The country of Malta is split into two halves. The main island is Malta, and a second, a much smaller and less hectic island is named Gozo. The population of both islands is 430,000, with only 6,500 people living in the capital city. In the summer, the temperature climbs to 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit and is very dry. In winter, it only gets to around 13 degrees, which is 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The houses are built with very thick walls to protect from the elements, as there are virtually no heating systems. St. John's Square, named after the Order of St. John, is notable for housing several heritage structures including St. John's Co-Cathedral, which is a monument dedicated to Enrico Mizzi, the former Prime Minister of Malta. The square is a popular meeting spot, owing to many outdoor cafes lined around it. Prior to the Second World War, two large apartment buildings with street-level storefronts stood on the location of the square. However, these buildings suffered massive damage due to aerial bombardment. During the reconstruction years following the war, the government of Malta requisitioned the central portion of both these buildings to create the square that exists today. It serves as the entranceway into one of the world's most spectacular cathedrals of the same name. In my travels around the globe, I've seen many churches. Very few, however, come close to the splendor of St. John's in Malta. The cathedral was built by the Knights of Malta in 1573. The interior is extremely ornate, with very intricate carved stone walls and painted vaulted ceilings. There are numerous side altars decorated with paintings of the life of St. John. Interestingly, the figures painted on the ceiling next to each column initially appear to the viewer as three-dimensional statues. On closer inspection, however, we see that the artist cleverly created the illusion of three-dimensionality through his use of shadows and placement. The entire floor of the church is covered with marble tombstones. They commemorate 395 of the most illustrious knights of the order. Several of them were members of the powerful aristocratic families of Europe. There is also a crypt containing the tombs of the Grand Masters. The tapestries on the walls depict the triumph of the Eucharist and scenes from the life of Christ. The designs of the tapestries were based on the cartoons made by the Flemish artist Peter Paul Rubens. The cathedral's exterior was slightly damaged by aerial shelling in 1941 during World War II and had barely escaped total destruction. The contents of the cathedral had been transferred elsewhere before the bombardment, so no works of art were lost. The cathedral was restored between the late 1980s and early 1990s, and a complete restoration of the exterior began in July of 2014. The project was completed in 2017. The Great Siege of Malta occurred in 1565 when the Ottoman Empire attempted to conquer the island of Malta, then held by the Knights Hospitaliers. The siege lasted nearly 4 months, and Valletta was the scene of some of the most intense fighting. It withstood massive bombardment from Turkish cannons, and St. Elmo's fort was successfully defended by only 150 knights and 600 soldiers. During World War II, the fort was the site of the first aerial bombardment of Malta. Centrally located between Gibraltar and Turkey, North Africa and Europe, the country was a strategic British stronghold, but was heavily attacked and during over 3,300 air raids, which destroyed nearly 11,000 buildings. 9,000 people were killed during the constant attacks which took place between 1940 and 1944. The Axis resolved to bomb or starve Malta into submission by attacking its ports, towns, cities, and Allied shipping supplying the island. Yet miraculously, the country stood fast and held its own. In December of 1942, air and sea forces operating from Malta went over to the offensive. By May 1943, they had sunk 230 Axis ships in only 164 days, the highest Allied sinking rate of the war. The victory in Malta played a major role in the eventual Allied success in North Africa. After these messages, we'll continue to explore this beautiful island nation and see some of the more rural areas.
At Voss, your independent grocer, it's all about hometown living and shopping. Owned and operated by Port Perry's own Terry and Christine Voss, the independent grocer carries many local items to support our town and its residents.
Welcome back. As small as Malta is, there is so much to see and do, and I was surprised at the number of historic sites the country has. In this segment, we'll explore caverns and cliffs, take a ferry ride, and visit a village where the movie Popeye was filmed. I left Valletta and traveled to the southern coast where I discovered some fascinating rock formations known as the Blue Grotto. The drive was interesting, and I passed numerous villages with quaint buildings, most of which were churches. I came upon the Blue Grotto, which is actually a number of sea caverns on the southern coast of Malta. Every day from sunrise until about 1 p.m., a unique sight can be observed. The location of the caves combined with the sunlight leads to the water becoming a mirror and displaying numerous different shades of blue, hence the name. The Blue Grotto is a popular destination for tourists on the island of Malta, with boat trips to visit the caves. It also has some fantastic sites for diving. The location has been used many times by filmmakers, including scenes from the 2004 film Troy. My next stop was the archaeological site of Hagar Quim, one of the oldest historic sites in the world with standing stones dating back 5,600 years. At the entrance, I had the opportunity to meet some of the local wildlife. including the original Maltese falcon. The complex of Hagar Quim was first excavated in 1839 and consists of a main temple and 3 additional megalithic structures beside it. The northern ruins are about 8,000 years old, nearly twice as old as England's Stonehenge. The outside entrance serves as an interior passage and connects 6 large chambers. The outside wall, built of huge vertical blocks, projects inward, thus creating an extremely solid building. The right wall is constructed as an arc to prevent the upright slabs from falling inward. Walking through the main entrance, one finds a central paved space with an apse or C-shaped room on each side. One of the prehistoric chambers of Hagar Quim holds an elliptical hole which is hewn out in alignment with the summer solstice. At sunrise on the first day of summer, the sun's rays pass through this hole and illuminate a stone slab inside the chamber. A dedicated visitor center offers information about the event as well as the site, and is extremely informative. The warm Mediterranean climate found in Malta is perfect for the prickly pear cactus plant to thrive. The prickly pear cactus produces a delicious fruit, which comes in a variety of colors, ranging from green to yellow, red, and purple. Malta has many small towns scattered throughout, and visiting them can prove to be a unique experience. One such village is Rabat, an Arab word meaning suburb, with a population of 11,000. The town shares its name with the capital of Morocco. I noticed many decorations commemorating the feast of St. Paul, the patron saint of the city, as well as the main cathedral, which is also named for him. I did a little investigating as to what the link was between the saint and the town of Rabat. It appears St. Paul, on one of his many voyages spreading the gospel, became shipwrecked on Malta while en route to Rome. He stayed in this area for a total of 3 months, at least according to the biblical books of the Acts of the Apostles. Like most of Malta, this area is also used continuously as a backdrop in major motion picture filming. The main reason one visits Rabat is to see the ancient catacombs of St. Agatha. These caverns were used in Roman times to bury the dead, as according to Roman culture, it was unhygienic to bury remains within the confines of a city. St. Agatha is Malta's oldest parish church and was named after the saint who fled from Sicily and took refuge in Malta as part of Rome's decree to persecute Christians. The Christians in Rome used catacombs to bury their dead and to hold worship services. The crypt at Rabat, where Agatha spent so much time, was a small natural cave. During the 4th and 5th century, it was enlarged and the underground basilica was created, which was venerated by the Maltese. Several passageways show biblical symbols from the early Christians, but the main chamber shows frescoes dating from the Middle Ages. Some of them are dedicated to St. Agatha. Today, a church named after the saint is located above the crypt. The catacombs located here are simply underground cemeteries. Long, narrow corridors with tombs and vaults on each side. The tombs were used for the internment of several people, sometimes separated by a thin wall. On occasion, 3, 4, or even 5 persons were buried in the same grave. This is an agape table, probably used for the final farewell repast. It is a round table hewn out of the live rock which slopes gently downward toward the edge. The Maltese catacombs were never meant to be hiding places or living quarters, but during persecution they did serve as such. In the catacombs of St. Agatha, there are over 500 graves of several different types. There are also sections for pagans and Jews. My next stop is inland and a visit to the city of Medina, which is spelled without an E. The city of Medina was the old capital of Malta and is a medieval walled town situated in the center of the island. It is commonly called the Silent City because once the capital moved to Valletta, Medina became a ghost town. The city of Medina is still confined within its walls and has a population of just fewer than 900. Medina owes its present architecture to the Arab period from 870 until the Normans conquered Malta in 1091. The city is surrounded with thick defensive fortifications and a wide moat, separating it from its nearest town of Rabat. At the end of the siege of Malta, the defenders of Medina famously scared away the Turkish army that was retreating from their failed siege at the future site of Valletta. The Knights of St. John continually fired their cannons with blanks, as they had very little ammunition. A strong earthquake in 1693 destroyed a large number of structures in Medina, but today it has all been rebuilt, and most of Medina's palaces now serve as private homes. I came across a very different craft market, housed in unique, dissimilar buildings. Located on the site of an abandoned World War II airfield, these old munitions huts have been converted into shops, selling souvenirs that you'll not find anywhere else in Malta. Continuing to explore the South Island, I came across the Dingley Cliffs, a plateau some 250 meters or 800 feet above sea level. It's the highest spot in Malta, and the site offers amazing views. I was treated to some great food and excellent entertainment at a folk dance evening at the Limestone Heritage Park, an old abandoned quarry that has been transformed into a sightseeing adventure. My last stop on the South Island was Anchor Bay, the site of the famous Popeye Village, constructed for the Robin Williams movie of 1980. Today the site is a popular tourist destination. I took the ferry to Schlendy Bay on the island of Gozo, passing by the smaller island of Camino, the third of the Maltese islands. The island of Gozo is 14 kilometers long and only 7 kilometers wide, which is roughly 4 by 8 miles, and exactly half the size of Malta's South Island. The ferry ride will accept cars, and to my surprise, it was only 25 minutes long. I visited the Azure Window, a natural limestone arch which was formed when 2 sea caves collapsed. The arch was disintegrating rapidly as large pieces of rock continued to fall from the underside. Sadly, it finally collapsed when the rough seas lashed the country during a storm a few months after I was there. For those of you who enjoy the television series Game of Thrones, the Azure Window was used in several episodes. The main city of Gozo is Victoria, a city of just under 7,000 inhabitants. The city was so named in 1887 after Queen Victoria on the occasion of her Golden Jubilee. For me, it was another opportunity to enjoy local ice cream, something I try and do everywhere in the world. The market in Victoria sells a variety of wares, mostly consisting of knockoff clothes and souvenirs. I proceeded to the Citadel, the fortified historic city castle, which lies in the heart of Victoria and dates back to 1500 BCE. The massive defensive stone walls of the stockade, which rise above the town, were built to protect the village communities from the foraging corsairs attempting to take slaves. They also protected from the threatening invasion of Muslim forces fighting Christendom in the 1500s. For those of you who have read Homer's poems, this site is thought to be the same cave Homer mentioned in the Odyssey, where Calypso, a beautiful nymph, kept Odysseus as a prisoner of love for 7 years. Calypso had promised him immortality if he stayed with her, but he escaped when he could and returned to his wife Penelope. Calypso Cave is located on a cliff overlooking Gozo's most sought-after sandy beach, Ramla Bay. Archaeological sites are numerous on the 2 larger Maltese islands, but my last stop at the Ganshia temples are among the best preserved considering they're 5,500 years old. The site consists of 2 temples and are the world's oldest man-made religious structures. They were built at a time when no metal tools were available and the wheel had not yet been introduced. Small spherical stones have been found and are believed to have been used as ball bearings to transport the enormous stone blocks required for the temple's construction. Unfortunately, that brings our adventure in Malta to an end. Experiencing the history of this small island nation was amazing, and I found the people to be very friendly. The 600-year-old buildings displayed Maltese charms, and the Mediterranean all around me looked so inviting. Before we go, I wanted to mention a great magazine I recently came across. International Travel News is an informative collection of travel articles, anecdotes, and useful information for anyone traveling or thinking about where to travel. Visit the website on the screen to request your complimentary copy. For photosNtravel, I'm Jonathan Van Bilsen. It's been my pleasure to be your tour guide today, and I look forward to our next adventure. If you enjoyed this program, please click the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode.
Want to know what's happening in Skugog? News and lifestyle, changes in business, and all the entertainment information you'll ever need. Plus, each edition has a new photosNtravel article. Look for your next copy in your mailbox.
At thestandardnewspaper.ca, we try to show you the lighter side of our community workers and shed some light into their work in our community. With human interest stories on how the community gives back and reporting on legislation which affect us all, the Standard News is raising the standard in your community.